So it's being highly reported that two major international wrestling superstars are being highly coveted by the WWE. Just who are these two international men of mystery? And do I think either of them are going to make it to the WWE at some point? We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more right here, right now on Dead on Dave Productions. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy, Dead on Dave. And as you can see, I'm alive from my chili pepper adventure that I had last night during the NXT review. But that's yesterday, and we got some big major news to talk about that's going on in the wrestling world right now. There are two major stars in the wrestling world that have expiring contracts. And whenever that happens, whenever expiring contracts are coming up, these stars are going to be ultimately linked to the WWE, and especially during a time when the WWE needs some juice. And not only do they need some star power, they need guys that are ready now, that don't need a lot of build down in NXT, if any at all. I don't know if either of these two even do, but already have a built-in fan base. It can be said for both of these two that is 100% true. And of course, I'm talking about the Ring of Honor heavyweight champion and television champion Jay Lethal. Yes, Jay Lethal. And of course, the bigger name for me, international superstar, Japanese sensation Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, this is interesting to me, of the possibility of this happening. Let's start with Nakamura because I think it's a little bit easier. And my reasonings for that are going to be very simple. You cannot downplay the success that Kana has had in NXT. What Asuka, as she is now known in WWE, is able to achieve, what she's been able to do, the responses she's been able to elicit are nothing short of pure rock star status. And the reality is, Nakamura is her male equivalent. He is an absolute rock star just like her. When he comes to the ring and he performs, not only is he technically just proficient and exciting, he's charismatic just like she is. He's unbelievably exciting in everything that he does. And he has a tie to one of the biggest stars in WWE, if not the biggest, right to second. Of course, that's Brock Lesnar. Who's a bigger draw in the WWE right now than Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar is such a big draw that he doesn't have to work ever, because every time he comes back in, he makes enough money for the entire year. That's how big of a draw Brock Lesnar is. Now, if you don't know the story between these two, they have quite a storied history. They battled in 2006 when Brock went over to Japan for a while, and Nakamura came to the WWE. Well, there was reports that he was going to go to the WWE because he went on this training mission all around the world. He wrestled everywhere. And he came to the States and he actually trained with Brock Lesnar for quite a long time. And a friendship was formed. How good of an introductory storyline would it be for Brock Lesnar to be bringing in Shinsuke Nakamura? I mean, that would be really cool to see. That would be exciting. It would be really, really exciting. What's cool about Nakamura is he's not a small guy. He's 6'2", so he's not huge either. But he's pretty damn good size. He's unbelievably charismatic. He's a name. If you're a wrestling fan, he's a name. Now, look, I'm not going to say true wrestling fan because that's bullshit. Because not everybody watches New Japan. But if you're just obsessed with wrestling and you have to watch it all the time, you want to watch the best possible wrestling that you can, then I'm fairly confident in saying that you've probably come across Nakamura. He's one of the biggest stars in Japan. The only issue is he's 35. But that's not even as big of an issue as it once was, because older superstars, Asuka being one of them, she's like 33, are starting to come over to WWE. WWE with NXT, which you would think is just a proving ground for young guys, but that's not necessarily the case. They've been bringing in older guys, and they've been working with pinpoint proficiency, because the reality is guys like Samoa Joe, James Storm, Nakamura, a whole bunch of others. These guys, they bring in fan bases with them from around the world that want to see them on the biggest stage possible. Because as much as everybody shits on WWE, there is still an ungodly amount of talent there. And all the biggest dream matches on the biggest stages possible are made there. It's just the reality of the situation. So it's going to be unbelievably exciting if Nakamura actually comes to WWE. He doesn't need a lot of time, if any, down in NXT, but I don't think anybody would object to it. The fact that he's 35, that's not all that old in wrestling. In fact, you're kind of at your peak. He's got a couple of years where he could be at his absolute best, and the WWE can capitalize. It can be great for him because he gets to check something very big off his list, and he gets to be introduced to the biggest audience of his career. It would be unbelievably fun. And, of course, WWE always wanted to expand its presence, especially with the Japanese audience, and the fact that it's working, and they're already kind of poaching other guys from New Japan. It's a win-win-win-win-win. This guy is so good at what he does. It would be unbelievably exciting. So I think that's cut and dry. If Nakamura wants to go to WWE and his contract is actually expiring and all that's true, WWE is going to jump on this. They want a guy like Nakamura. And he speaks English, so that's not even a barrier. The bigger one here, not as far as name or impact, but the bigger challenge of the two is the other guy that I mentioned, Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal's only 30 years old, but it seems like he's been around forever, and that's because he's been around forever. I've never been a huge Jay Lethal guy, even now when he's at his absolute best. There's no question he is peaking at this moment. The best matches that he's having, even though I do feel that they are inconsistent, even at his championship stature that he is at, yes, he had an amazing, maybe match of the year candidate with Jay Briscoe, but I feel like some of his other title defenses are a little bit lackluster, and Jay Lethal still falls into that category where you almost think that he's a gimmick. They're all gimmicks, but a gimmick of a gimmick. And I think that's because of how TNA used him and may have irreparably ruined him in some ways. Jay Lethal has done amazing things since leaving TNA to really rebuild his brand. He's very charismatic. He's very likable. And hateable in some instances as well, because he's working very well as a heel at times. I don't know if his game is going to work in WWE, or at least I would have said that a couple of years ago. But the reality is, right now, he has a perfect place that he could fit, the New Day. The New Day, I feel, needs to expand. And bringing in a guy like Jay Lethal is exactly what they need to do. He's a perfect fit. He's a character. He's an absolute character. His impressions would work in New Day. Now, granted, people do make the obvious comparison between him and Kofi Kingston. I've made that comparison quite a bit. I think Kofi's a little bit better of a high flyer, but they're very similar in a lot of ways. And to see them in the same faction might get a little redundant. Again, something I would have said 2 years ago, but because of how Kofi has reinvented himself and become this really crazy character, I don't think that is a worry anymore. And the fact that Jay Lethal is such a good performer in the ring, and he is, let's face it. I mean, he's an unbelievable talent. Yes, he can get a little bit inconsistent at times, but who the hell doesn't? The fact that he is a good performer, just like the rest of the members of New Day, they all have their talents, but they all can work at the end of the day. I think he would bring so much to that. Again, he's another guy who doesn't necessarily have a big reason to go to NXT, even though nobody would mind seeing him take on some of the stars down in NXT right now. That being said, him just making a quick debut and then heading on up, or just heading on over to WWE, is not out of the question. He has a fan base. He's well known. But WWE likes to make these pit stops down in NXT, so when they bring them up from NXT, they're not bringing in an outside hired gun. They're bringing in a guy who's reestablished themselves in their brand. It's actually a really smart strategy, and they're going to do it with Samoa Joe. They'll probably do it with James Storm, and they'll do it with a lot of other guys. And it's not they did it with Kevin Owens, and as great as Kevin Owens' career as he's had, 15 years, in this business, they talk about what he did in NXT because he became their guy. It's really smart, and it's just kind of another layer to why NXT is so brilliant, the whole idea behind it. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if this works out, if either of these guys are going to ultimately sign with WWE. I personally think that because of the situation going on with WWE, with the roster upheaval and everything, if Roman Reigns continues to flounder, which I do believe that this situation with him and being pushed to the top and everything, being crammed for the first time, in the past I would have said Roman Reigns has not necessarily been crammed down our throats because it's just an assumption that he was going to be the guy. But they've always restrained. Now it seems like there's no questioning the fact that he is being hammered up our asses, and it is a little frustrating. It's a little frustrating, and I think it's going to ultimately fail. When that time does come, and I think it'll be sooner rather than later, sometime around the new year, these two guys are going to look so appealing that WWE is going to throw enough money at them where they can't possibly say no. And when they do that, it reshapes what the roster will look like going into WrestleMania. It's just too appetizing. I don't see how they don't pull the trigger. Because, yes, you could talk about all the talent that they brought in and all the talent that's getting ready down in NXT. Some that we know, some we don't know, like Rich Swann, Biff Busick, a few others. Others like that we do know, like Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, guys like that. Finn Balor, obviously. We know they're coming. We know that Sami Zayn is getting ready to make his return. We know that Hideo Itami might even be making a return, a surprise return, sooner than that. There's all kinds of things that are happening that while, yes, there are so many negatives with some of the big stars that have gone down and the inability to really elevate a new top face, well, you have two opportunities right here that are ready to go with built-in fan bases that can be top face performers in your company. So why not take that shot? Why not take that shot? To me, it makes all the sense in the world. So naturally, WWE probably won't do it. But I have a feeling that at least one of these guys will sign, but I have a hunch that probably both of them will. I don't know. Look, the reality is, a year ago, it seemed like the television companies were going to be taking more chances on wrestling. It seemed like a boom was inevitable. Now, the destruction of Destination America is complete. And if you don't believe me, not only have they gotten completely out of the wrestling industry, they're done with the business. Because of the failures with these two, and I think it has a lot to do with it and the success of a stupid exorcism show that they put on there, Destination America is completely rebranding their channel, possibly changing their name, and going to a full supernatural content listing starting next year. I mean, they got burned by this whole situation with the wrestling industry, and they want nothing to do with it. And I think a lot of other companies, Pop probably being another one of them, that will be doing the same thing after TNA ultimately fails with them. Sorry, TNA fans. It's just a reality. TNA has left many dead bodies of television stations in their wake, and they'll continue to do so. And Carters have money, and they're going to continue to do this. So it's just now, I think some of these guys who've always wanted to be in the WWE, I think it makes more sense now than it ever has before. So hopefully it's going to happen. I want to see it happen, and the WWE really does need to make it happen. We'll see exactly how it's going to go. With some of the other changes that they're making, I mean, I don't know what – I wanted to do a separate video on it, but I decided not to. This whole situation with Mick Foley's son coming in and being a new creative – he's not a writer – but he's going to be a creative helper. I mean, I don't know what his exact job title is, but I find it interesting with everything that Mick Foley has been saying. Now his son is going to be involved with WWE Creative. I don't know how that's going to work. He's a younger guy, obviously, but he's natural-minded. He's one of us, type situations. It's going to be interesting to see how some of the changes start to happen. And if Vince Russo is right that there is a war brewing between WWE and USA Network, that eventually USA is going to step in and tell WWE that they need to change their content because that's just what's best for business for USA. I think all of these things are suggesting a major shift in attitude for the WWE. So hopefully that's going to happen. I'm pretty excited about it, and I think it could work on a massive scale. Asuka, Hideo Itami, they tell me that there is something here. There's something here to be exploited, man, and explored and embraced, and hopefully that's going to happen. With Jay Lethal, he's hit or miss. He might get over, he might not, but how he gets brought in is going to be essential. Essential, because I don't think that they can just go, I'm Jay Lethal. I think he needs to be brought into a situation, and I think New Day is a perfect fit. Yes, because it's black. Yeah, okay. Jesus. Yeah, fuck off. All right. Anyway, thank you guys very much for joining me on another episode of Dead on Dave Productions. Merry Christmas. You like all the Christmassy stuff? I got lights. It's great. Look at all the lights. It's wonderful. Thank you guys for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you check out everything that's going on within the channel. We got all kinds of videos up. Check out my boy Tommy C over at Shot from the Point, the most badass hockey podcast channel in all of YouTube. Make sure you check him out. I'm there quite often. I'll be there Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Shot from Point Live. Your boy Dead on Dave is filling in for his brother in bigness, Jake Link, the legendary comedian. So I'm very excited about that. Other than that, that's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me. We'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, and share. And as always, if you don't have talent, have talented friends. We'll see you next time. Deuces. Every so often, a musician emerges that changes the landscape of their genre, changes the definition of what is, alters the rules set by those who came before. That musician brings with him music that shatters the image of the status quo, music that transforms, music that ushers in new inspiration, new ideas, and new life. That musician and that music is here.
And the best in the biz.
Evil Genius, what up?
Best in the world. December 17th, 2015. Real Talk, the Metaphor Messiah presents Black Mozart.